Your door. Make sure it opens and closes properly. That it latches securely. Your hinges. Make sure they're not cracked or broken. No excessive rust. You can check your handrails. Make sure they're properly mounted, not cracked or broken. No missing nothing bolts. So you can check your left and right turning signals. Make sure they're not cracked or broken. The proper color is amber. Your fuel tank cap. Make sure it's properly secure. That it has a rubber sear or gasket inside. You can check your fuel tank itself, make sure it's not cracked, broken, or leaking. Fuel tank hose, make sure it's properly secure, not cracked or leaking. Fuel tank strap, make sure it's properly mounted, not cracked or broken, and that they have the rubber lining in place to prevent metal-to-metal friction. You're going to check your side steps, make sure they're properly mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. They're clear of any debris or grease. You can check your emergency compartment, make sure it's properly mounted, that it latches correctly and the hinges aren't cracked or broken or have any excessive rust. And then you move on to the midsection. Over here you're going to start off with your exhaust system. Make sure it's properly mounted, not cracked or broken, no missing nuts or bolts, so that you have no excessive noise, any type of exhaust leak or any illegal welds on that one. You move on to your air lines and electrical lines. You have your emergency, your service, and electrical. Make sure it's suspended properly, not like this one. That they're not tangled with each other, that they're not cracked or leaking. You're going to check your glad hands. Make sure they're properly fastened, that the rubber seal is in place to prevent any air leaks. And then you can move on to your drive shaft inside. Make sure that's properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or broken, or illegally welded. You can check your U-joints. Make sure they're not cracked or broken. Check your catwalk. Make sure that's properly mounted, not cracked, broken, missing any nuts or bolts. You check your air tank. Make sure that they're properly mounted, not cracked or leaking. The air tank hoses securely clamped, not cracked or leaking. Move on to your battery box. Make sure that's properly mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. Your batteries itself, make sure they're not leaking. Have no excessive corrosion on the terminals, and no exposed wires. You move on to your header board. Make sure it's not cracked or broken or missing rivets. And check your clearance lights on top. Proper color should be amber in the front, red in the back. Make sure they're properly mounted and working. And that finishes off that side. I'll move on to the rear suspension, which is your frame. Start off with the frame. Make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, or illegally welded, or any illegal holes. Check your splash guard, which should be right here. Make sure that's properly mounted, not cracked or broken. Move on to your spring mount. Make sure that's properly mounted, no missing nuts or bolts, not cracked or broken. Check your leaf spring, or in this case, it's the control arm. Make sure that's properly mounted, not cracked or broken. Torque rod, properly mounted, no missing nuts or bolts, cracked or broken. Your U-bolts inside. Make sure they're properly mounted, not cracked or broken, no missing nuts or bolts. Your axle. Make sure it's properly mounted, not cracked, bent, or leaking. Move on to the back. Over here. Okay. Move on to the airbag or bellows. Make sure that's properly mounted, not ripped, torn, or leaking. And then inside, you have a shock absorber. Make sure that's properly mounted, not cracked, or leaking. And that finishes off the rear suspension. Fifth wheel. Okay, yeah, you can do that.
Today, point at me.
Alright, we'll finish.